Hi everyone. Welcome to the Inclusive Access tutorial series for Microsoft Word. My name is Keisha and I will be your host today as we examine this episode's topic in document accessibility. For this episode, we're going to look at document whitespace, what it is, what it's used for, and how to include whitespace in your document so that it is accessible and compatible with assistive technology. Whitespace plays a large role in how your document is organized and structured, but it's not the main focus of your work. That is, whitespace is negative space or empty space in your document, and it's used to cushion your document elements when you organize and structure these components. Examples of whitespace would be document margins, the space between paragraphs, around images, tables, and charts, or the space before and after document headings. And while correct use of whitespace will make your document appear crisp and well-structured, the true benefit goes beyond that. When used properly, documents with whitespace work well with assistive technology, and they reduce the potential confusion of where one document element ends and when the next element begins. It is incredibly important when working on documents that every effort is made to make sure that that document will not create barriers for someone when they try to read it, regardless of what method that the reader chooses to use. And too often, the document creator is unaware that what they're making will create an accessibility barrier for someone else, and it ultimately ends up causing very frustrating experiences for their reader. They're left with fragments of information or no information at all. To help illustrate what I mean, let's look at an example. In this document, whitespace has been used to separate two paragraphs of text. It looks good, but we know that visual cues aren't the only things that we need to look at when we include whitespace in our document. In order to see the function of the different elements, including whitespace, we need to turn on the document's formatting view. To view document formatting, select the Home tab in your ribbon if it isn't already highlighted. Then click on the Show Hide Formatting button, which can be found here in the Paragraph section. It looks like a backwards P, and the symbol is actually referred to as a pilcrow. You can also access this tool by pressing Alt+H and then 8 on your keyboard. If whitespace has been formatted correctly, it will behave as negative space, meaning that no formatting or content will be found in the space between the two paragraphs. So let's turn on the format view and find out. Now that the formatting is visible, we can see that the document author didn't add the space between these two paragraphs correctly. There are several pilcrow markers between the two lines of text. Pilcrow markers identify paragraphs in a document. If you look, you'll find them at the end of every paragraph of text in a document. But there's no text between these two paragraphs, and yet there are markers. So what does that mean? Well, every time you press Enter on your keyboard, you're not just entering and starting a new line, you're actually creating a new paragraph, even if you don't add text to it. Screen readers just can't tell the difference. They're not smart enough to know that you're formatting stylistically instead of functionally. They take all of the information available in a document and simply regurgitate it. When you have these markers in your document acting as space makers, your reader is told that a paragraph exists in that space. They're then left wondering if the document that they're reading is missing text, or if the screen reader has simply made an error. That kind of experience can deter them from reading your document right from the start, and they create incredible barriers that need not be there. The thing is, even if you convert your Word document to another file format, like a PDF, all of this formatting information is transported and put into the new file format, which includes the empty paragraphs. Fixing documents that have these empty paragraphs after they've been turned into another file type is time-consuming. Therefore, best practice is to work on accessibility concepts as you build a document, so it's built right in and you don't have to worry about it. In my experience, Both as a document creator and from a remediation standpoint, creating accessible documents from the start is always the best option. It takes a while to develop these new habits, but once you know what settings and options you can use in order to make things easier for yourself, it will save you so much time in the long run. And now that we have a better understanding of what whitespace is and what it does, let's adjust the space between these two paragraphs so that we are using the whitespace properly. I'm using this example as a base concept because the method that we're going to use to correct this document will work for images, tables, and charts in other documents as well. Each of those elements will treat surrounding whitespace the same way as a paragraph, which makes formatting these elements so much more convenient. Before we go any further, I'd like to point out that today we're only going to focus on how to modify a document. This method is great for changing and reviewing content when you need to edit, but it's not meant for overhauling a document's structure. And it's not meant for creating default settings. If you're looking to apply broader changes, then take a look at my tutorial on how to modify document styles. In that tutorial, I will show you how to create default settings for when you build new documents, and how to change existing settings so that they're more inclusive for documents that you're continuing to work on. Now, we already know that the empty paragraph markers between these two lines of text shouldn't be there, because they're actually empty paragraphs. So first, we need to get rid of them before we do anything else. To do that, you can just highlight these markers the same way that you would highlight text and delete them right from your document. Once they're gone, we can add white space properly. Move your mouse cursor over to one of the paragraphs. It doesn't matter which one that you choose. Just right-click on the chosen paragraph, and from the right-click menu, choose Paragraph. You can also access the Paragraph Properties window by pressing Alt+P to get to the Layout tab, and then PG to access the Paragraph Properties window. Once the Paragraph Properties window is open, it'll allow you to make modifications to your text alignment, paragraph indents, line spacing, etc. You may have not known this before, but this window also allows you to add space between paragraphs, before and after. If you look near the bottom of this Properties window, there's a section dedicated to spacing. The setting that we want to modify is in this section. Now, depending on which paragraph you've selected, you'll need to modify either the space before or after that chosen paragraph so that it matches what existed before you started working on your document. In my case, I chose to modify the first paragraph, which means I need to add space after that paragraph so that it goes between these two lines of text. I'm simply going to increase the amount of space that appears after my selected paragraph by changing the value in this box. I can do that by typing in a value or by using the arrows to increase or decrease the current value. The preview window at the bottom of this Properties pane will tell me and give me an idea of how much space I'm adding to the paragraph once I've finished modifying the setting. When you're satisfied with how much space you think you'll have, select OK and exit the window. The changes that you've made will automatically update the paragraph you've worked on. If you need to make additional tweaks, you can go back into the Paragraph Properties window to make more modifications, and you can continue to do that until you're satisfied with the outcome. This is also true for images, tables, and charts. As I said before, these items can be treated as paragraphs in your document, but for that to work, they need to be considered in line with your text. That means they'll behave like paragraphs, and they'll be subject to the same formatting rules. Now you can modify the space before and after these elements in the same way. Let's add an image to our document as an example. Once the image is in your document, you'll see in the image properties that the image is set in line with text by default. That means that the image is inserted on the same line as your cursor, wherever your cursor may be in the document at the time. You'll also notice that the image is selected as an object once it's in the document. That's evident of the object resizing box that surrounds it. If you triple-click on the paragraph, the image will be highlighted as well. Now, when you place your image in your document, if it's in a paragraph with the rest of your text, you can place your cursor at the end of the word that appears immediately before the image and then hit the return or enter key one time. Since document formatting is still turned on, we can now see that the image is contained within its own paragraph. We can now modify the white space for that new paragraph in the same way that we have for text. We can now use the white space option to create a cushion around our element. Now, this is also true for other objects you can add into your document like tables and charts, as I said before. If they are inserted into a document in line with text, they can be added to their own paragraph and then formatted in the same way to add a cushion of space that's also accessible. And there you have it. You can now format your text and objects accessibly to create white space that is also compatible with assistive technology. But that's all I have for this episode. I hope that it was helpful, but if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can email me directly. I've put my contact information in the video description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.